To get ready for Buckeye, software team has two major things that we need to implement that we learned from the Miami Valley Regional. The first thing is the binding commands to the left and right DPad and binding command A command to the B button. So the left and right DPad, oftentimes we're trying to grab the disk from an odd angle to pick up the disc, and we'll be a little bit farther to the right or to the left, and instead of sliding over by backing out at an angle and then driving up, so we're coming in perpendicular to the disc, we'll try to grab it from an angle, and that makes getting our gripper through the pickup very difficult. Besides that, we're also working on communication, having our driver looking at folks that are able to give input, but that's a different issue. So what we'd like to do on the D-pad is if I press left on the D-pad, then the robot will back up and get to the left a little bit, and if I press right on the D-pad, it'll just back up and slide to the right. So it'll allow me to make a quick no think adjustment, so I can just press left on the D-pad, it'll execute that quick command, and then hand the controls back to driving mode. B button, once I've planted a disk and I want to drop the hatch panel disk and back out, we'll press the B button, and that will do that'll lower the elevator a tiny bit, and then apply reverse power to the drive system and scooch us out. So one button does those two complicated things. Well, they're not complicated, it's delicate, and in the heat of the moment it's hard to be that precise. So we'll just save that motion to the B button and execute that. The way to do both of these things is using a command group, and they're super simple. Command group just adds sequential or parallel commands, so you can do multiple things. And so we'll just make a command group. We'll call the command like we do any other, and we have examples of those throughout our code. And so we'll just execute this command, but the command is only a few lines, and all it does is add in a recipe of what we would like the series of things to do. Challenge isn't going to be setting up the command group. That's the easy part. But the individual commands that comprise these actions are going to take some effort, because the first thing that we'll need to do in the D-pad is to rotate the given direction a certain degree, and then back up, and then rotate the other direction so we're back to where we were. So if I want to move left, I'll turn right, back up a little bit, and then turn left so I'm facing the exact direction that I started. And with the B button, I'll need a command that lowers the elevator for a certain amount of time and then drives backwards for a certain amount of time. Lowering the elevator, instead of doing it by time, it would be ideal if we did it by encoder value. But we can, once we have the encoder plugged in and set up, we can switch that. But for now, we'll need to set up the individual commands that make up this group. We have started the disk release command already. Charlie's going to be upset about, but we should move this into separate files. The disk release should be a group command, and there should be very little logic. Instead, it should have one file that does the elevator move, and then another file that does the drive system move. And that way we can debug them and reuse those components elsewhere if more commands are requested. D-pad, when we trigger that command, we're going to drive to angle. Then we'll need a new drive to time, or some sort of timed drive command to back us up. And then we'll do the reverse drive to angle to square us back up the way we were. So that will be pretty simple. We just need to add one more file. But for the disk release command or panel releases. But anyway, what that will do, it will we'll need an elevator timed down, not just an elevator down that executes while we're holding the button, but a timed command. And then we'll need to use the same drive time command that we'll use elsewhere. We'll call that and give that information just to scooch us back just a little. Triggering those actions onto the D-pad will require this switch statement. We'll just move this switch statement into the drive command and the drive slow command. Drive smooth is something that the programming team could also do. This is our third priority. It's the lowest priority. So we might want to also consider that. But this switch statement is a similar structure as an if statement. The switch will keep on reacting to the POV point of view. It's the direction pad, and it will do something according to what this returns. Normally, it's returning -1, in which case the motor will do nothing. If case 0 is if this is returning that we're pointing straight up, that returns a 0 value on the D-pad. Top right is 45, holding right is this one, and if we hold right, then you can see we're adding the arm move to command. We're going to cut that since we're not using the D-pad for our arm move. Instead, we'll repurpose all of this inside the drive command, drive commands really, and that when I press right or left, actually this is down, right or left, it will execute that S turn left or S turn right, so I can slide over a little bit. We will set up the D-pad. Setting up the B button is easier. This is always returning information. It's like a joystick, so we can't do what we do for the buttons and just hang an event listener. If I press the B button, then disk release happens. That's easy to set up, and we've already got that wired. We just need to turn this into a command group and pull apart the logic into separate files. That will also help us out with the D-pad backup command. All right, let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to help. I'd love to see some of the software team lay out some of these files and get this process started. And then I'll jump in and see what I can do to clarify and help things develop. The drive smooth command is what we can focus on once we have these other two things done. And this is just trying to remove that sort of jerky motion forward and back. This has some serious problems. What it's supposed to be doing right here is that every time you request, let's say you're at 0, the stick is upright, and then you slammed it to -1, which is full throttle forward. Then we'll flip that and we'll say, okay, you want +1 full speed, and we will limit how much change you have per execution cycle, and this is called repeatedly. So it goes pretty quickly, but each cycle it'll limit how much you're able to change your requested speed by this fixed this magic number here. And so if what you were previously going at compared to what you're trying to do, if the absolute value of that is bigger than what you're allowed to change it by, then we limit your requested speed. But this has some serious logic errors, and we almost took down Brian while testing this. So all of this needs to be thought through, so we can smooth out sudden changes in speed so we can avoid losing the disk. So that could help with that process a lot. I mean, true, a disc grabber would also allow us to drive, um, in a greater hurry without losing the disc. But software can help as well by giving a drive command that smooths out the motion somewhat. Um, we can definitely try this with our practice robot, and it's something we could probably work out this week and next if we come in during break a little bit. But it is just our lowest priority. We've got to get those other two things done first. Okay, now you're all caught up. Let me know if you have any questions.